Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamie's Books and More. I haven't been on here in a few weeks, so welcome back. Appreciate you coming to check out my channel. I haven't been on here because I've just been busy with family stuff and kids and parent-teacher conferences, stuff like that. And so I wanted to get on here because I really wanted to distract myself from what's going on right now with the election, kind of stressing me out. So I thought the alternative for me that's really relaxing is to talk about books. So I thought I would talk about some books that I've picked up from the library and also some books that I've ordered recently in the past year. And I'm sorry if you hear some noises in the background. My kids are in there on the PlayStation, so my son can be a little loud. So I got this new microphone. It's supposed to block out background noises, but I'm not really sure it is. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about this first book. I saw it recommended on a couple booktube channels on YouTube, Peg in the History Shelf and Bill Rutenberg's Library. There are a couple of booktubers that I listen to a lot, and I get a lot of book recommendations from them. So if you guys happen to be watching today, hello. Thank you for all your wonderful book recommendations, and I appreciate that. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about one. I think that they're actually doing a buddy read on this, and I ordered this one from the library. I'll go ahead and put on my glasses to read that for you. It's about Thaddeus Stevens, Civil War revolutionary fighter for racial justice by Bruce Levine. And I have talked about before that I really love books by abolitionists. That's just a book topic that I've just really been into lately. And I do get into other book topics and stuff, but this is what I've been on, a kick I've been on lately. So I'll read a little bit here. The Civil War and Reconstruction wrought a political and social revolution in the United States, destroying the South's slave labor system, promising equal civil and political rights to African Americans, and wrenching the federal government out of the hands of the Southern elite and its friends. Pennsylvania Congressman Thaddeus Stevens was one of that revolution's most important and impressive political leaders. Among the foremost abolitionists in Congress in the years leading up to the war, he became a leader of the Republican Party's radical wing in wartime, fighting for a broad range of anti-slavery and anti-racist policies, including the abolition of slavery nationwide, well before party colleagues like Abraham Lincoln endorsed them. After Lincoln's death and the war's end, Stevens continued to fight for equal rights for Black Americans, rights eventually embodied in the 14th and 15th constitutional amendments. He directed the impeachment of Andrew Johnson when Lincoln's successor sought to cripple Reconstruction, but while Stevens in many ways successfully pushed his party and America toward greater equality, he also championed ideas too visionary for his fellow congressmen ever to support, including confiscating large slaveholders' estates and dividing the land among a people who had worked that land under slavery. Impeccably researched, eloquently written, and more timely than ever, Thaddeus Stevens is the definitive biography of a forgotten champion of racial and economic justice in America. I think this book is really a new book. Let me see if I can... Oh, it says Simon & Schuster. It's 2021. I was able to get this from the library. There was another one recommended by Peg and Bill called An Uncommon Woman, The Life of Lydia Hamilton by Mark Kelly that I want to get my hands on. But that one wasn't available at my library, so I may end up ordering that one later on from Amazon or something. Let's see. What else did I get from the library? I thought this looked good. David Crockett. I saw a special about him one day that made him sound interesting to me. This is The Lion of the West, David Crockett, The Lion of the West by Michael Wallace. And it says his name was David Crockett. He never signed his name any other way, but popular culture transformed his memory into Davy Crockett, while Hollywood gave him a coonskin hat that he hardly ever wore. So wildly popular was this colorful outdoorsman turned politician that he became a legendary figure even in his own lifetime. Born into a poor family in 1786 on the eastern Tennessee frontier, Crockett had a Huck Finn like childhood that could have been something out of the dime store novels his legend later spawned. As befits his myth, Crockett did indeed display a paternal talent for hunting, but he never killed him a bear when he was only 3, as one ditty proclaims. While Crockett's boyhood exploits are truly remarkable even by frontier standards, it was his parents' dire financial circumstances that instilled in him an outsider sensibility. Masterfully framing Crockett's life against the volatile history of the frontier, Michael Wallace recounts the story of the young hunter who would disappear alone into the unexplored cane brakes, returning months later with harrowing tales of death traps and murderous natives. So extraordinary were Crockett's exploits, so remarkable his storytelling gifts, that he distinguished himself first as a wildly popular soldier and then as a budding politician. Elected to Congress in 1826, he achieved great prominence in the new capital for his homespun ways and support of the dispossessed. Yet Crockett was too much for Washington to handle, eventually breaking with Andrew Jackson and his punitive Indian policies. Crockett considered running for president. Didn't know that. Wrote a best-selling memoir and became the inspiration for an immensely popular play, The Lion of the West. As famous as Crockett became, however, his political career quickly faltered, his folksy charm no match for Andrew Jackson's venom. No part of Crockett's life remains as controversial as his death in Texas in 1836, where he migrated, hoping to build a new life. Challenging a multitude of wrongful assertions, Wallace, using recently discovered sources, conclusively demonstrates that Crockett neither surrendered to the Mexicans nor was taken hostage in the battle at the Alamo. With David Crockett, Wallace has written a 3-dimensional portrait of the famed pioneer whose dreams reflected the consciousness of a restless nation with a distinctly westward gaze. This absorbing biography distills fact from fiction and stands alone as a vivid evocation of a true American hero in the rough and tumble times in which he lived. Oh, that sounds interesting. Let's see here. Here's another one about another famous abolitionist. Got a little bit of stuff on that book. This is the library's copy as well, and I have picked this up a few times, and I flipped open the pages last time, and I thought the writing was written well, so it's not like really like a tedious book. I thought it sounded like it was written well. So John Brown, abolitionist, the man who killed slavery, sparked the Civil War, and ceded civil rights, by David S. Reynolds. Now, I was at Harper's Ferry when I was younger. My dad was like a history nut, so I guess it's no wonder that I love history. We went to pretty much every single place that Abraham Lincoln ever walked or slept, pretty much. So my parents did take us to Harper's Ferry. I wish that I had been more interested at the time, but you know how teenagers are. So this is a book I would like to read. And so everybody knows he was like a famous abolitionist during the Civil War. I'll just read a little bit again here. A few historical figures are as intriguing as John Brown, the controversial abolitionist who used terrorist tactics against slavery and single-handedly changed the course of American history. The brilliant biography of Brown, 1800 to 1859, by the prize-winning critic and cultural biographer David S. Reynolds, brings to life the Puritan warrior who gripped slavery by the throat and triggered the Civil War. When does principled resistance become anarchic brutality? How can a murderer be viewed as a heroic freedom fighter? The case of John Brown opens windows on these timely issues. Was John Brown an insane criminal or a Christ-like murderer? A forerunner of Osama bin Laden or of Martin Luther King Jr., David Reynolds sorts through the tangled evidence and makes some surprising findings. Reynolds demonstrates that Brown's most violent acts, his slaughter of unarmed citizens in Kansas, his liberation of slaves in Missouri, and his dramatic raid in October 1859 on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, were inspired by the slave revolts, guerrilla warfare, and revolutionary Christianity of the day. He shows us how Brown seized the nation's attention, creating sudden unity in the North, where the Transcendentalists led the way in sanctifying Brown, and infuriating the South, where pro-slavery fire-eaters exploited the Harper's Ferry raid to whip up a secessionist frenzy. In fascinating detail, Reynolds recounts how Brown permeated politics and popular culture during the Civil War and beyond. He reveals the true depth of Brown's achievements. Not only did Brown spark the war that ended slavery, but he planted the seeds of the civil rights movement by making a pioneering demand for complete social and political equality for America's ethnic minorities. Anybody who can put themselves through that for a cause of civil rights is a hero in my book. I don't know. I'm really interested in his life. Let's see here. So I am from the great state of Ohio. So I wanted to get this book, which I ordered off of Amazon not too long ago. It's called The Other Trail of Tears, The Removal of the Ohio Indians by Mary Stockwell. And I don't know. I'm just interested. My family originated back in our small town in Ohio. The house that I was raised in was about 100 years old, and it was one of the first. I think my relatives were one of the first people in that town. I just kind of always wondered, were they involved in removing Indians? I just don't really know a lot about that, so it would be nice if I could, find something out by reading this. Just informing myself more on the topic of what really happened in Ohio. So it says the Indian Removal Act of 1830 was the culmination of the United States policy to force native populations to relocate west of the Mississippi River. The most well-known episode in the eviction of American Indians in the East was the notorious Trail of Tears, along which Southern Indians were driven from their homes in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi to reservations in present-day Oklahoma. But the struggle in the South was part of a wider story that reaches back in time to the closing months of the war in 1812. Back through many states was notably Ohio, and into the lives of so many tribes, including the Delaware, Seneca, Shawnee, Ottawa, and Wyandot Huron. They too were forced to depart from their homes in the Ohio country to Kansas and Oklahoma. The Other Trail of Tears, The Removal of the Ohio Indians by award-winning historian Mary Stockwell tells the story of this region's historic tribes as they struggled following the death of Tecumseh and the unraveling of his tribal confederacy in 1813. At the peace negotiations in Ghent in 1814, Great Britain was unable to secure a permanent homeland for the tribes in Ohio, setting the stage for further treaties with the United States and encroachment by settlers. Over the course of the 3 decades, the Ohio Indians were forced to move to the west, with the Wyandot people ceding their last remaining lands in Ohio to the U.S. government in the early 1850s. The book chronicles the history of Ohio Indians and their interactions with settlers and U.S. agents in the years leading up to their official removal, and sheds light on the complexities of the process, which both individual tribes and the United States taking advantage of opportunities at different times. It is also the story of how the native tribes tried to come to terms with the fast pace of change on America's western frontier and the inevitable loss of their traditional homelands. While the tribes often disagreed with one another, they attempted to move towards the best possible future for all their people against the relentless press of settlers in limited time. So, hopefully I learned something in there about my state of Ohio. Here's another book I got from the library, and I have heard this discussed at Revenant Reads here lately, and that's another channel that I do watch sometimes. It's quite good. So I encourage you to also check out that channel. He gave a great review of this book, and I've heard a lot of people talking about it. It says, on November 6, 1860, Abraham Lincoln became the fluky victor in a tight race for president. The country was bitterly at odds. Southern extremists were moving ever closer to destroying the Union, with one state after another seceding, and Lincoln powerless to stop them. Slavery fueled the conflict, but somehow the passions of North and South came to focus on a lonely federal fortress in Charleston Harbor, Fort Sumter. Master storyteller Eric Larson offers a gripping account of the chaotic months between Lincoln's election and the Confederacy shelling of Sumter, a period marked by tragic errors and miscommunications, inflamed egos and craven ambitions, personal tragedies and betrayals. Lincoln himself wrote that the trial of these 5 months were so great that could I have anticipated them, I would not have believed it possible to survive them. Wow. At the heart of this suspense-filled narrative are Major Robert Anderson, Sumter's commander and a former slave owner sympathetic to the South, but loyal to the Union; Edmund Ruffin, a vain and bloodthirsty radical who stirs secessionist ardor at every opportunity; and Mary Boykin Chestnut, wife of a prominent planter, conflicted over both marriage and slavery and seeing parallels between them. In the middle of it all is the overwhelmed Lincoln, battling with his duplicitous Secretary of State, William Seward, as he tries desperately to avert a war that he fears is inevitable, one that will eventually kill 750,000 Americans. Drawing on diaries, secret communiques, slave ledgers, and plantation records, Larson gives us a political horror story that captures the forces that led America to the brink. A dark reminder that we often don't see a cataclysm coming until it's too late. And that was by Eric Larson. He's a really popular author. I know I've read something by him, but I can't think of it at the moment. I think it was about Nazi Germany. Okay, so I have a couple other books here. This one, I have this partially read. I also had this recommended to me from Peg at the History Shelf, so thanks, Peg. This is called The Diary Keepers, World War II in the Netherlands, as written by the people who lived through it, by Nina Segal. And this one has been out for a couple years. I did get this around Christmas time one year. This is by HarperCollins, and it is... Let's see here. Okay, well, I'm not seeing it offhand, but it's not too awfully old. It hasn't been out for too long. But this is diary entries from all kinds of people. Because I believe it was in Holland or the Netherlands, they were encouraged to keep their writings from diaries. So lots of people kept diaries. People who survived the Holocaust, people who ended up dying during the Holocaust, and even Nazis. So this book, I think I've heard, is a little bit controversial, but I thought reading it so far, it has taught me a lot of history that I didn't know. So I think it's informative. Based on select writings from an exceptional Amsterdam archive. Okay, it was Amsterdam, not Netherlands. Let me start over. Based on select writings from an exceptional Amsterdam archive containing more than 2,000 Dutch diaries from World War II, The Diary Keepers illuminates a part of history we haven't seen in quite this way before. Nina Segal, an accomplished journalist and novelist, weaves together experts from the daily journals of collaborators, resistors, and the persecuted. A Dutch Nazi police detective, a Jewish journalist imprisoned at the Westbork transit camp, a grocery store owner who saved dozens of lives, into a braided non-fictional narrative of the Nazi occupation and the Dutch Holocaust, as individuals experienced it day by day. Segal provides the context, both historical and personal, while she tries to make sense of her own relationship to this past. As a second-generation survivor, Born and raised in New York, she attempts to understand what it meant for her mother and maternal grandparents to live through the war in Europe during those times. When Siegel moved to Amsterdam, those questions came up again, as did another horrifying one. Why did 75% of the Dutch Jewish community perish in the war, while in other Western European countries the proportions were significantly lower? How did this square with the narrative of Dutch resistance she had heard so much about? Searching in Singular, The Diary Keepers takes us into the lives of 7 diary writers and follows their past into the present through interviews with those who preserved and inherited these diaries. Along the way, Siegel investigates the nature of memory and how the traumatic past is rewritten again and again. Good writing style. I would probably pick up another book from her. Okay, this is another one. I don't remember if someone recommended this to me or not. It might have been Peg again. I'm not sure. She has a lot of good books that she reads and recommends. So this one is called Defying Hitler, The Germans Who Resisted Nazi Rule by Gordon Thomas and Greg Lewis. So, this is probably a little bit of an older book. It's by Penguin Random House. Not sure why I'm not really seeing the dates on these. Usually I can, oh, here, let me see here. Oh, it's a 2019 book. So, okay, I'll read a little bit here. Nazi Germany is remembered as a nation of willing fanatics. But beneath the surface, countless ordinary, everyday Germans actively resisted Hitler. Some passed industrial secrets to Allied spies. Some forged passports to help Jews escape the Reich. For others, resistance was as simple as writing a letter denouncing the rigidity of Nazi law. No matter how small the act, the danger was the same. Any display of defiance was met with arrest, interrogation, torture, and even death. Defying Hitler follows the underground network of Germans who believed standing against the Fuhrer was more important than their own survival. Their bravery is astonishing. A student beheaded by the Gestapo for distributing anti-Nazi flyers. A German-American teacher who smuggled military intel to Soviet agents. Becoming the only American woman executed by the Nazis. A pacifist philosopher murdered for his role in a plot against Hitler. A young idealist who joined the SS to document their crimes, only to end up, to his horror, an accomplice to the Holocaust. This remarkable account illuminates their struggles, yielding an accessible narrative history with the pace and element of a thriller. So, yeah, another good book. So, oh, you know what? I also have, hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. I wanted to show you guys some books that I saw at Walmart, like a ton of them. They're like $1 each, and they're like for youth. They have some like pictures in. They have The Call of the Wild, Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, Treasure Island, The Secret Garden, Alice Adventures in Wonderland, and The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I saw all of these at Walmart for $1 each. I know a lot of them ran out quickly. And so if you didn't want to like read the adult version of this, this would probably be a quick read. I do think I read this one in elementary school or something, but I would like to kind of read through those too. I think whenever I get a chance to read like a classic, I just enjoy that experience. So all right, well, thank you for being with me today and listening to me. And I hope that if you like this kind of content, you will like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And I hope to see you all again. So have a great week, a great weekend, and have a great adventure in reading. Have a great day.